Hi, Fantasy Film Fest. This is Lawrence Jacomelli, and I am the writer, producer, and director of Bloodstar, which is my debut movie filmed on location in Palmdale, California. Bloodstar is screening at Fantasy Film Fest now.
What was your worst experience with a policeman or a policewoman?
That's a great question, but the reality is no, I've never been victimized or bullied by an officer of the law anywhere in the world. Police are ultimately there to protect us. And in most cases they do. However, there are instances where the complete opposite happens, and we also think that that's something to sort of highlight. And me personally, I find it very disturbing, when I see these examples of police misconduct, brutality, or other crimes. Um, and so it was this idea of a corrupt police officer that became the basis for our serial killer in this film. I felt that the sheriff made an intriguing monster that would resonate with a modern audience due to the number of cases seen in the media of police brutality and abuse of power. However, this movie isn't just about fearing a killer, a cop. It's about tapping into the feeling that the audience may have simply from everyday encounters with police. Say I'm driving down a busy street at 30 miles an hour, and a police car starts following me. I know I've done nothing wrong, but my thoughts start to race. Are my lights working? Am I driving at the right speed? What have I done wrong? I feel that this paranoia, the feeling that comes with everyday police encounters, is an experience that a lot of people have. We should look in our rearview mirror, see a cop, and think, "Phew, I'm safe." But in many instances, this just isn't the case. And as a filmmaker, this is the feeling that I wanted to explore and use as a device to create on-screen tension. Some of the best horror films have used common human experiences to evoke fear and anxiety in their audience. For example, have you ever been swimming in the ocean and felt a niggling fear in the back of your mind? Well, yeah, of course you have. It's a natural instinct. But it could be argued that a certain famous film took this somewhat rational anxiety and enhanced that, all in the name of cinema. It's films like Jaws that have inspired me to use common human fear as a tension building device in this movie. And so that's why I really like the idea of the cop, who is often the protagonist, in this case being used as the antagonist in our story.
So, Lawrence, tell me in a few words about the background of the film and what Bloodstar is about.
I, I realised when we started working on Bloodstar that this is what I'd been looking for, something simple that I could get my teeth into and really develop the finer details. I wanted a story where I could create interesting set pieces, have drama between actors, lots of cinematic visuals, interesting kills, um, and a desert road movie with a killer cop gave me exactly that. Um, Bloodstar begins with our main character Bobby Torres driving through the desert in the US when she is pulled over by a local sheriff. Bobby's confused. After all, she's done nothing wrong. The sheriff begins to toy with her, though. At first, he takes her phone, then he takes her license, and then, to her shock, he shoots her car, and she's crashed off the side of the road. Bobby, on the other hand, is a streetwise Puerto Rican from New Jersey, so she's no one's fool and no pushover. She's a pickpocket that's had brushes with the law, and eventually she uses her street smarts and survival skills to overcome the sheriff. The entire story takes place within a 24-hour period, and the film is mostly told from Bobby's point of view in order to trap the audience in with her and in her situation.
You mentioned that you've had no negative experience with law enforcement, but have you ever had a memorable encounter anyway with one of them?
Actually, there is a funny story that we had on set at the end of one of the shoot day. There is a funny story that we had on set at the end of one of the shoot days. We left the location, drove 20 minutes on a road, because I needed to get a final shot of the movie, the drone shot where the car's driving away. So it was just myself and Victoria driving the picture car, the cop picture car, and Pascal, the cinematographer, and his assistant in a support car. Anyway, we're driving along one of the long Lancaster roads deeper into the desert, and a SUV comes hurtling towards us. Then the next thing we know, the rear view mirror, I see the SUV do a U-turn, and seconds later, it's right up behind us. Sirens blaring, flashing, and this is a big, big, big SUV, American. Anyway, we pull over. Support car pulls over. Cop car pulls over. Cops come along either side of myself and Victoria with their guns out, which is standard practice. Victoria's white as a sheet, and I'm feeling quite tense. The problem is we're in this cop car, albeit a 2001 Crown Victoria picture car. Second problem is that the coverings we put over the badges on the side of the cop car are blown off. So these guys were in quite a bad mood with us, and that's very understandable. A cop on my side gives an angry license and registration. Now, at this point, I flash back to the night before, and I'm in the kill room, just about to do a scene with John and Britt, and suddenly I get this tap on my shoulder, and it's a production assistant, and she wants my license cause she's got to do something with it, got to rent something. So anyway, I'm in the middle of this intense scene with John. I give the license. I never think anything more about it until now. The next day, when the police is there with the side of the car with the guns. So I tell him I haven't got the license, and then I remember that I haven't got the registration either, because the car was bought and owned by Zaina, who was our line producer. So then he gets really upset. He then asks about the plates, and I suddenly realised, well, hasn't it even got the plates on this car, because it's the picture car plates. But then finally I had a thought. So basically inside the glove box, I remember there was a black and white photocopy of the actual tag. So I get that out slowly, give it to him. He kind of gives a bit of a grunt and walks away. And then he comes back, and he doesn't speak anymore, that guy, bad cop. And then it's over to the other side, Victoria's side, it's good cop, let's call him. And basically, he's been on the phone to dispatch, and he says to Victoria, "Is this Zaina's car? You guys with Zaina?" And we were like, "Oh my god!" So the tension was palpable, and then suddenly it's like total mood swing. And basically, Zaina's our line producer. She's been in touch with the police for the permits and the permits for the camera car stuff. We've had 5 police with us when we've been doing all the low loader camera car stuff. So they knew us, but they knew Zaina, but they didn't know us. So anyway, they let us keep our cop car, and but we didn't get our shot that day.
You mentioned that the story takes place in the desert and of the US, and was it your plan from the beginning to shoot in the US? And did you do also a kind of road trip through the desert or through the US?
Okay, so for this movie, the US backdrop is instrumental to the storyline. From the outset, I was never trying to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. And I firmly believe that audiences find the stereotypical US cop or even the US serial killer more believable. Let's say, it's that they're icons. They mean something. So, in terms of creating something that an audience could truly buy into, I felt that I could achieve something far better in the US and with a US cast than, say, in the UK. But aside from the characterization, the idea of filming in the US also excites me. When I first started planning Bloodstar, we discussed Australia, Scandinavia, or even Scotland, places like this. Anywhere where you could have an isolated situation. But the desert was essential. But the desert was an essential component to the movie, and so it felt natural that we use the US as our location. The desert backdrop confronts the audience with Bobby's loneliness and vulnerability as she is left alone with this monster. I feel that this setting really allows the audience to sympathise with Bobby, and visually it gives us tremendous production value.
What would you say? What kind of films that maybe also are based in the US and in the US desert did influence you for Bloodstar?
The main influence for Bloodstar was a film called Wolf Creek. and also Spielberg's Duel. Wolf Creek is a really slow burn, but then the mood shifts and it gets really, really gnarly. For me, Wolf Creek as a commercial horror thriller was quite unique, and I found myself watching it again and again, not because I wanted to study it, but just because there was something about it that really engaged me. Um, and the main character in Wolf Creek was a formidable monster, and that's something that I really wanted to replicate in Bloodstar. I think that's what a thriller needs. You've got to have that a good monster. Um, Jewel centers around the concept of a bully who won't let go, which also helps out a lot in terms of crafting the framework for our story. We're following the same sort of theme, and so the structures, the parallel of the structures are kind of there. Another thing that sort of popped into my mind later on. I've always loved the ending of Shallow Grave. Where the camera reveals Ewan pinned to the floor with a knife, and without any intention at all, I can see elements of this scene mirrored in Bloodstar. Just wanted to say as well, for me, as a storyteller, killing both brothers was never going to be enough for Bobby. She needed them brought to their knees, especially after the brutal torture that she suffers at the hands of them both. So it seemed only right that after the ordeal, she would be granted a righteous victory. So for me, she had to kill the cop with his car, and that brings it around full circle. It gives you like a perfect conclusion. But I also wanted it done in a certain way. So for me, he had to be submissive when he knew he was beaten. So he drops to his knees, the car runs through him, he's hit by the bull bars, blood hits the screen, the windscreen, and this red cast of light is cast over Bobby's face in this final climax of this scene. Before she then flicks on the windscreen wipers and clears her view. And this has got more of a sort of almost like a Tarantino sort of feel to it. I would potentially say, it's kind of got a pulp feeling to it, and that's what I wanted to do with this film. I wanted to start off slow and intense, and then just keep changing gears, and almost make it something different by the end. So it's growing the whole time. As a director, I'm very visually orientated, and when we're discussing the cinematography of our movie, we looked at films like Nocturnal Animals and No Country for Old Men, and we wanted this. What we liked about that, and what we wanted to achieve, was that sense of realism. Is cinematically very beautiful, but what I personally don't like is when the image becomes over processed and there's too much light, or even that you feel that it's lit. The desert. Night shots in particular, I wanted it just to feel really like moonlight. So we shot on Red Gemini so that we could have a light sensitive camera for all the night scenes. As I said, I don't like it when I can see that a shot's been lit. And the high sensitivity allowed our moonlight to be a 6K HMI and a 4K HMI par, blasting side by side through an 8x8 quarter grid on an 80-foot condor, backed 30 feet away from the road. So just really quite a simple setup, and it lit the whole place up like a football pitch, with a nice even light. And there were there was a lot of discussions and doubts beforehand whether that would be enough, but in the end it was fine. Of course, you can't light the sky, but then that's where post-production can help, with sky replacements. So in that instance, you just got to be aware of your angles and camera movements, and just allow for that element of post-production to bring, the completion to the imagery.
What would you say were the most important things while filming this movie? Can you name two, 3 points?
What I would say were the most important things, the three most important things, when it comes to filming, when it came to filming this movie, and probably most movies, would be the script, the casting, and the theme. I think if those are off, then your whole movie could be in trouble. So firstly, I would say the best director in the world can't make a great or even decent movie with a terrible script. So that just has to be right. Secondly, the wrong casting, when you lose your audience. You want your audience to love and hate your characters. That means your characters can't be vanilla. We asked ourselves what makes these characters unique and engaging. Once you fully answered that, then you can cast your actors that fit that specific role or description, and then they can bring their own unique take on your character. But you have to be sort of decisive about who your characters are and what they stand for, and then it comes to the theme. So you've got to know what your theme is, so that you're aware of what the voices are of your actors, and ultimately, um, the theme will give you an anchor point in the following stages of production, where you are constantly making hundreds of decisions, usually under immense time pressure. Making a movie is all about those choices. You make hundreds every day, and a lot of those choices are forced by the limitations of the budget. We shot this film in 10 days. I had read that Spielberg shot Jewel in 10 days, and Jewel was an action movie, far more complex. They were using film cameras, takes far longer. So I said, if he can do that in 10 days, albeit with a studio, we should be able to do our film in 10 days. So that was kind of that's something I set myself. So we averaged 5 scenes per day, and it took around 2 hours to set up and shoot each scene. But it was a real scramble, and we were limited to 2 or 3 takes. That's just for the dramatic stuff. Most of the kills were one take, if not all of them. But I'm proud of the outcome. And I think that if you're making a low budget film, you do have to compromise along the way to get it done. The biggest choice that I made was to go heavy in the camera department, as I wanted to shoot 2 cameras and have a third camera dedicated to car mounts and gimbal. So we had 2 Red Gemini and 1 Red Komodo, and I think there's a misconception that shooting 2 cam can lead you to compromising one or other of the 2 shots. For example, if you're shooting a conversation, you can't light for both at the same time. Well, that's not true. But equally, you can get 2 angles in one direction and then 2 angles in the opposite direction. So I also knew that a maximum of I knew that a maximum of 2 hours to shoot each scene. I knew I had a maximum of 2 hours to shoot each scene, and therefore shooting 2 camera was the most logical solution, and with the least amount of compromise. And we used virtually every angle that we shot in all of the scenes. And we also dedicated plenty of time to the preparation, which meant that we came to shoot the film, we could be as efficient as possible. The beauty of it was that we weren't adhering to a timeline when we came to the planning stage, because it was our project. We could take as long as we needed to take. And what that means is you can be more resourceful, and we needed to be. We scouted the filming locations in plenty of time, like three months before, maybe more. And from that, and with that knowledge, then I went into storyboarding, and the storyboard I did with extras. Well, Victoria and another friend of mine called John, and we used stills camera, and basically I shot more or less every angle, and from that, with cars and props and stuff, and then from that we then storyboarded it, and from the storyboard then we created an animatic, and on the animatic we had the music, we had the VO from the actors, from the table reads. So essentially I had an hour and 10 minute long animation of the movie, which shows you the tone of the movie you're trying to make, and which you can then share with everyone, the actors themselves, but also the crew. You're talking to guys who are helping us, as part of this team, and they're not getting paid full fees. So you want everyone to be on board and fully sort of involved in the project and sort of believing in it. So that really helped a lot. But it also meant that we knew exactly what we were shooting. So that helped a lot, when we were on set. We knew what we were doing, and also we knew what we could cut if need be.
About the actors you use in the film, how did you prepare with them for the shooting?
When we searched for the actress to play Bobby, we struck gold almost immediately. We actually found Brittany Camacho on Instagram, and after a screen test, I knew that she was perfect for the role of Bobby. I mean, literally a perfect fit. Preparing Bloodstar with the cast was, really fun part of the process. We had so much fun doing the table reads, and for me, working with these incredible actors was just, it was joy. It was a joy. And like I said, it was really useful to then share that animatic with them so that they could see the film we were making, because you only really get so much of it from pitch decks and the script. Once you kind of see it coming together, the visuals, it's another thing. And that helped everyone buy into my vision for this film and also embrace the tone that I aim to create on screen.